I'll cross to London and catch up with former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer in just a moment, where the UK is battling an asylum seeker crisis, struggling to house an influx of illegal migrants. The United Nations is up in arms, as usual, at this plan that will house up to 1,000 refugees on 2 barges. Here's the latest from Sky UK.
At first light, weeks late, the Bibby Stockholm was finally pulled into port. The controversial barge will soon be home to 500 asylum seekers, part of the government's plan to reduce the £6 million daily hotel bill for migrants. But as it docked into Portland, there was protest.
I'm saying I don't feel safe in my own town.
Concern for what this barge means for the migrants and locals. Basic accommodation will include twin rooms, Wi-Fi, a canteen and healthcare facilities.
For every bed that's occupied on the Bibby, the council here is being given £3,500 by the Home Office. The government is also making a one-off payment of £377,000 to help with things like activities and English-speaking lessons for the asylum seekers.
Let's go to London and catch up with Alexander Downer now. Thanks for joining us, Alexander. This is redolent of the prison hulks of the 18th and 19th century. They'll be sending their illegal migrants to Australia next.
Well, they're just essentially ships, or called barges. As you can see from that Sky UK report, they have cabins in them, and it's just somewhere for these people to stay while their applications for asylum are being processed. I mean, they either stay in hotel rooms at huge expense, or they stay on these barges. They're not imprisoned there. They're able to walk off, should they wish, at any time.
Yeah, some people are critical of that because they're suggesting the policy might be too soft because they get on and off the barges. They might just disappear into British society. Just how is the UK government going with their attempt now at tougher border protection policies?
Well, quite mixed. I went out on a Border Force vessel last Friday off Dover, where the vessel collected 58 of these asylum seekers. I would say until they get agreement to send these people to Rwanda, the agreement of the courts, of course, until that happens, they're not going to be able to stop it. They just come. The French refused to stop them. A French warship on this particular occasion when I was there just shadowed the asylum seekers' boat. And then the British boat went out there once it crossed the demarcation point into the UK's waters. The UK boat just went and picked them up and took them into Dover. So, I mean, it's just a traffic. And you have to destroy the business model of the people smugglers. And then so far they haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, as you say, they won't be able to do that until they can send people, divert them to a third country the way Australia did. Look, I want to get your views on an intriguing story that's creating a lot of speculation around the world. Of course, China's relationship with Australia is so fraught at the moment, but China's relationship with the rest of the world is so important as well. And the Foreign Minister, Qin Yang, hasn't been seen for more than 3 weeks. China watchers say this is highly unusual and something weird could be afoot. What's your interpretation?
My interpretation is that he has some severe health problem. I assume that's what's happened, but it's because he's only been in the job since December. He's a well-known figure in Chinese diplomacy. He was the Chinese ambassador to the United States for a while and became the foreign minister in December. So I think the only possible explanation could be that he's unwell and they don't want to talk about his health too much. I mean, it seems unlikely that he's been fired or something more untoward than that has happened to him. That seems pretty unlikely after such a short period of time.
Yeah, there's no suggestion that there's been any falling out with Xi Jinping. He's reportedly quite close to the president.
Well, I think what's interesting about China is, of course, we don't know that, but what's interesting about China's foreign policy is that there has been a subtle shift in the last few months away from the sort of very aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy that they had to a much more conciliatory, engaging diplomacy with the rest of the world. I'm not sure whether that has coincided with the arrival of a new foreign minister, because the former foreign minister is now a state councillor, in a sense, has been promoted. So I doubt that it's anything to do with that. I think the reason China's foreign policy has changed is because they've realised they've made a mistake shackling themselves to Russia, to President Putin in particular, and his failed war, that they need to engage more broadly with the rest of the world, and they need to stop antagonizing the West in the way they've been doing before. So they have subtly changed their foreign policy. But I assume that comes from Xi Jinping himself, who's realized that his very aggressive approach was unsuccessful.
Alexander, I've got to get your reading on the axing of the Melbourne or the Victorian Commonwealth Games, how that's been received in London. What impact do you think it'll have on the Commonwealth?
Well, it'll have a very negative impact on the Commonwealth, because it begs the question as to whether the 2026 Commonwealth Games will go ahead at all. And then the Commonwealth Games is the flagship event, really, of the Commonwealth. It's the one thing about the Commonwealth that we see and engage with as a general public. It's also fantastic for athletes from small island developing states which are in the Commonwealth. It's one thing for Australia, the UK, New Zealand, Canada. Our athletes have plenty of opportunities, but for athletes from places like St Kitts and Nevis or Samoa, they have nothing like the opportunities. So the Commonwealth Games are fantastic for them. So it's a tragedy, really, and there will be, Commonwealth officials are now scurrying around trying to find another destination, another host for the 2026 Commonwealth Games. Hopefully they'll find one. Otherwise, this could be the beginning of the end for the Commonwealth Games. That's what I fear, and that in and of itself would be a huge blow to the Commonwealth. That might not worry Dan Andrews; he'd probably be pleased about that, but it'd be a huge blow for the Commonwealth. And all of this, by the way, has been very embarrassing for Australia. Australia has looked very bad because of this.
It sure has. It sure has. Alexander, thanks so much for joining us around the world there in a few minutes with Alexander Downer live in London.